am here. I had to restart because the thing I wanted to talk about I didn't have queued up like a moron, but hope you're doing well. I had initially taped an episode yesterday that was kind of a part 2 to last week's, and I decided to record a different episode because I wanted to, have the mood improving going into the end of this podcast. I open up. I'm vulnerable. I try to be honest with this podcast and my experiences. So I don't want to have, the last few episodes you just got really upset. So this one's going to be about something I thought was an interesting point of discussion from my friend Haruki, a multi-instrumentalist, but you might know him from the group Paddlebots. He also works with Plymouth Rock Recording Studios, I think is the full title. Great studio on the east side of the state of Michigan. And he posted this in his Instagram story as kind of a point of discussion, and I thought I would give my own 2 cents for today's episode because I think it's an interesting thing that you can kind of place into your own life. Whatever work you do, there's a point of reflection that's useful for everybody in this post. So let's go ahead and talk about it. All right. So I'll also put it up on the screen for anyone who's watching the episode. But real quick, holidays are here. Hope y'all are gearing up for however you celebrate it. Whether you have to celebrate it on Zoom because you're out of the state and you can't travel, or there's circumstances keeping you from seeing people, and you might have a Christmas by yourself, or maybe you're already making the trip back from school and you're braving the weather. Maybe it's a long drive, maybe it's a drive and a flight, maybe it's you're doing the first Christmas away from your family for the first time. Whatever that instance is for Christmas, I hope that you have a wonderful holiday. This episode isn't coming out on Christmas, so I have jumped the gun a little bit with saying Merry Christmas, but hey, 'tis the season. It's been Christmas since November 1st for a lot of people, or September, as soon as it gets cold. But you'll see the graphic right here, and hopefully you can read it. I'll make sure it's readable. But it says, "Real talk. Is anyone else feeling like their day-to-day busyness, passions, and hobbies are starting to feel more and more like a way to distract ourselves from the weird vibes that's ever present around us lately? I feel like so many of us want to think that everything is either fine or is going to be fine, but that feels off when there is so much tension. School shootings, COVID, social injustice, stores struggling to stock their shelves, seeing people affected by all these things. The list goes on and on. As artists, we're often fueled by the mission to turn negative energy into something that can positively impact the society, but it can be hard to know if your music can actually accomplish that or just add to the noise of distractions." I skipped the sentence with the swear word because I want to keep this clean, Hopefully text is fine for FCC stuff. Not that there's they're coming for me. It's just keeping things consistent. Yeah, it's an interesting time because you think about this. From my perspective, let's use me as an example because this is my podcast, so why not? 2019 was one of the busiest but most motivating years of my music career so far. Why was it that way? Well, the year started off with another musical residency. So I got to make, some good money, spend time with a fun community, kick off the year with, getting to kind of escape the winter blues into like a fun world. Musicals. I can't do them all the time, but when I do them, it's a fun little vacation from normalcy and normal work that I do. Though none of, I guess, you could make the argument none of the work I do is normal per se. But think about this: start of the year with a musical. Earth Radio's calendar getting booked in those 2 months. Some of the gigs with Mark Lavengood. 2019 was the first time Earth Radio played out of state, multiple states. We played Ohio, we played Illinois. It was our first run of festivals that year. We had done our first successful Kickstarter campaign. It was our first Tiny Desk contest submission. It was our first, run. The first time we'd ever done a 5-day run of shows. 5 days of being involved in shows and music. It was our first time, doing a lot of stuff. First vinyl, on a merch end. For Mark Lavengood, it was my first time playing certain festivals with him. I think it was the Smoky Mountain Run Festival. That was a really great festival. We drove through the night and woke up. I think we got there at like 3 a.m, and then we had to play at like 11 or 12, maybe early afternoon. But that was fun. That festival experience. I want to have more experiences like that where I travel and get to kind of absorb a part of a community for a day and play some music. It was also my first 2 trips with Mark out to Colorado. One of them was kind of routed we went through Iowa and Nebraska, got some shows. And then the second one was like mainly, I think it was all in Colorado. We just drove out to Colorado, had some shows, a radio appearance. First time singing on the radio. There's a radio clip, if you can find it, of me singing backing vocals on Hungry Heart because no one else was there to sing it with me. A lot of firsts. Very busy year. A lot of personal growth, a lot of personal progress. And then 2020, it was starting off the same way, as my, another musical with the West Shore Community College folks. Went to NAMM, right? NAMM 2020. My first time there. Worked with Cusack Music there. Saw a ton of stuff. Saw so many musicians. Got to network with some folks. Got to reconnect with people. It felt like a big industry hang, as much as it was like everyone being, look at me. I have a new set of strings. I'm endorsed by this company. All the things, just seeing the intersection of the music industry there was awesome. And then everything shut down in March. Like I had a week where I wasn't in the musical, and then the following week, everything shut down. And I got eventually laid off from Founders. All my gigs that I had been planning dried up. We had to readjust everything. I had to figure out unemployment for the first time. I still had plenty that I was trying to do, album reviews, streams, other collaborative things I could do remotely, learning more about tech and all that stuff, home recording, getting this office by the end of the year. Still just, doing work in the nooks and crannies, but it didn't feel like, the holistic part of why I got into music. Like I wanted a mix of it, like the performing, the recording, the ebb and flow of it all. Like, oh, it's colder months, less performances, more remote work. Oh, it's warmer, more touring, more traveling, And then 2021 came along, and we were crossing our fingers of like, in the creative community, is this the year? Are people gonna like allow us to do stuff? And not even like, oh, Whitmer, she's overreach. She's an autocratic leader. Is like, no. I'm talking about like the people on the ground who, you know, make things trickier. Like if if you're not taking public health seriously, it's hard to like put on events. It's hard to plan anything months out. Like so much of music is like getting things ready to tell people and hammer things that are happening into people's faces, because there's so much competition in terms of like your attention. 5 seconds here on TikTok, a video your friend shared on Facebook, a YouTube rabbit hole you just went down. Like, oh, I found this new creator who talks about forks, and I can't stop watching. And so we were wondering what it would look like for 2021, and I was very surprised when restaurants opened to quarter capacity. I played a few shows opening week for GR Noir. They finally were able to open. I had been talking with them since last, February of 2020. February 2020 when, Crooked Tree Creative launched, and then immediately was like, pew, because everyone had to pivot to other stuff. And then we had, been talking about GR Noir or talking with them, and they had the this vision, and finally getting to get into the space and see the vision, and that was super cool. And then the listening room had me with solo and then trio acts for like 4 months, twice a week, which was insane. It was like, oh, I have an income again. I'm earning money again from music, like on a regular basis. And then the summer opened up, capacity increased, outdoor shows, events were happening in full steam. I was able to play, a couple festivals, couple outdoor concert series, some things here and there with Earth Radio, with Mark Lavengood. And, Normal Mode did a couple things. I did some random jazz things here and there. A lot of weddings. And as I got into the fall, things sort of slowed down. Some stuff stayed busy. I'm still busy. And all this to say that, like, throughout this whole year, it's been weird. Like, I'm sometimes to a fault. I try to absorb what's going on in the world, what people are talking about in the news, at least in the American news, and at least in the hyper selective presentation of the American news. Because if national news were to cover everything all the time, it would be even crazier. Like they're already on 24 hours. Like you would need like multiple shows, and each thing would only get like 10 seconds to be like, this happened and this happened, because reporting on millions of people, it's tricky. But there's this the work that goes into being a creative. It felt more exhausting this season for whatever reason. I don't know if it was just getting used to the grind again and finally, tiring out from a busy summer. If it was like a visceral reaction to the grind because last year was demonstrably more restful. I don't know if it was just interacting with that many people again, just being that draining. It was small pockets of peer-to-peer stuff and like a lot of remote things. And now you're being thrust into crowds again. You're having audiences. You're having people. You're having that energy, and that's something you have to address too. The feeling of being on stage and knowing that what you're putting out is being reciprocated by real people again, instead of just like seeing little blips on a chat window. So when Haruki's talking about distracting ourselves from the weird vibes, there is an element of that. it's easier to focus on work when there's parameters, there's like a level of control that you have. It makes, it shrinks your world for a second down to like, I need to learn this scale, or I need to record this project, or I need to play this jazz gig. And things are weird. Like things are out of control in some spots. Like our culture wars continue to reign supreme. We keep hearing these statistics and things tossed out like, oh, there's an opiate crisis. There's, a healthcare crisis. There's kids who go without food. There's people like there's a housing crisis. There's so many crises, and most people choose to dismiss it because they're not directly affected by it yet. And to understand the scope of it would distract them from any work, and it's hard to like comprehend it all as one person because the entities that shape these things are so gigantic. So in a way, the work that we do as creatives, even though sometimes it feels like we're shouting into a burning building, like, hey, I know you got a fire, but my new album comes out and you're really cool. When your house is on fire. But it's a weird time, and it's a time that hopefully we don't have this happen again to this scale. Hopefully we learn from our mistakes, but we don't, so it'll probably happen again. We as a country, or we as a collective people, gone through a lot. Everyone's had to change something from their last year. Like nobody, very, very few people, I should say, very few people had zero change. Like I'm sure if you have a certain income bracket, COVID was just this weird thing you heard about in the news while you continued to sip your expensive wine on a beautiful veranda overlooking a tropical beach paradise or something. And meanwhile, there's like, people still getting sick every day, still dying every day. And, you're expected to just show up to like a wedding and be like, hey guys, we're so happy to be here for Stacy and John. Oh my gosh, we're so happy. Thanks so much for hiring us today. We're here. Let's go. Let's hear them horns. Let's go. And then the whole time it's just like, do you remember that there's a whole lot of pain in September? 'Cause we're stuck in the rain, and the rain is all the problems we've ignored for years. And then remember how we said there would be some changes, but the changes didn't come because as soon as the media stopped covering a thing, everyone decided to forget it, or they were overworked and they couldn't support it in the street. But now we got to go and get members of the people to go out and defend a place. I don't know. I had to make sure my camera wasn't going to shut off. It's weird, like, and that's also a weird disconnect we've always had to grapple with as artists, performers, the balance between being in the comfort zen zone to perform what you want to do as fluidly as possible, which is why you don't, when I tend to play, I don't do a lot of faces. I don't even smile sometimes because I'm just kind of locked into whatever I'm playing. Like I'm trying to focus in on the moment, and that tends to be very inward for me. And I've learned to like, all right, I gotta show outward movement. I gotta do something to telegraph to the audience that I'm enjoying it. And I can be entertaining to a point, but it's hard to when you're like, it's already hard enough when you're having a bad day. Imagine if the world around you is in chaos and you know it, and it's like for example, And I know there are going to be people who have their hot takes. That's fine. This is a hot take case. With old Kyle Rittenhouse, the fact that he like had and you could, whether you're for or against whatever decision, you have to recognize the fact that conservative media was just like ooh, come on, just start the trial. Like they're just soaking it, they're sapping it up. Like they were producing a documentary about this kid before the trial was even done. Like there was a trailer, and it wasn't like somebody like filmed his life and then like cut it together the night after the trial. They were just waiting for the verdict so that whatever they could edit the trailer to reflect, is it hero vindicated, the most handsome boy vindicated, or is it going to be leftist idealism reigns supreme as an innocent man is thrown, like I should just write headlines because they're so easy. It's so easy. You just write a thing that sounds the most like what, and then people click on it, and then it's like, it put up a new traffic light in the intersection. Government overreach mandates drivers to obey new policies around the intersection of Turner and Main. This is about traffic lights, but it's brain breaking to have. Sure, his case was covered in the media, yes, but to have him go on a media tour, like when was the last time you saw that? Like people are drawing parallels to like a George Zimmerman type, another vigilante who, killed someone. And it's brain breaking to have like these types of things rewarded. Like that's a reward. I don't care. People can make their argument of like, no, this kid's actually a victim. He's a victim of the surrounding rhetoric that inspired him and motivated him to do what he did, and now he's a victim because he's a pawn in the conservative media engine, and he'll never be able to escape it or have a normal life. It's like, yeah, but on the flip end, if conservative media is ready to prop up like an Oliver North, for example, who was convicted of high treason for being involved in the Iran-Contra scandal under the Reagan administration, if he can still pop on and be like a war consultant, I don't know if he's still alive, but when he was he was still popping on Fox News to be like, this is the right decision. I'm in my military fatigues because I've been in the military and I know what military, and then, so to shut all of that out, all of that insanity, when you try to dissect moments that's just one thing that's been in the prominent media recently. When you try to dissect that one thing and you try to absorb like, what is this perspective? What is this perspective? What are the conservative talking heads saying? What are the leftist or talking heads saying? What are the more centrist people saying? What are, do we need to look at testimony from like, I don't know, gun rights advocates and gun safety advocates? Do we need to look at it, every testimony from the community? Like, they could profile everybody. They could go out and interview like, yeah, I saw him. He was cleaning up graffiti. He was a painter saying to clean up graffiti. I can find just some random lady. And those people sometimes become memes, like the hide your kids, hide your wife person. Like, so when you see these kind of brain-breaking things, this, I can deal with this. And you know what this song is. If you it's, well, then there was a lot of problems in the city, and we don't have a lot of solutions to fix them. and we're all trying our best to survive, but the wages keep going down and the housing market is destroyed. Well, we're trying to get a bunch of people to understand that the systems in place that we've cultivated over the last 100 years are not serving the general public or the interests of the people who are working really hard to support the giant corporations making the stuff. And we just are trying so hard to like survive in our life, but it's not the easiest thing to do, and it sucks, and we're all just trying our best. And like the to sink into music is a distract it is a distraction, because as soon as you leave it, creative people, whether or not this could be said about any metric, like for example, a metric for this room could be amount of hornets. There are currently 0, but that's still a metric of hornets. But like, what creatives are inspired on varying levels from the world. Maybe it's nature, maybe it's culture, maybe it's history, maybe it's social interactions, maybe it's like, I think of when I first found out about Knower. The first song I heard by them was Hanging On. And it's a song that resonated with me because the chorus has this like finality to it, where it's like, it's time to get a real life, to get a 9 to 5 until the end. And that's something that every creator fears, like, hands down. Like, unless you're, wanting to get into academia, or you want to do that kind of work, most people I've talked to, they don't want to work that, they don't want to have music be a part-time thing. They want to be able to do it full-time. They don't want to work at, Walmart and then on the weekends play a couple gigs. They don't want to work for, retail or shipping or whatever. And some people take those jobs because, they move to a new area and they have to have an income before they get acclimated, and then they make that switch back again. And some people, they build something online and in person so that when they move from community to community, there is an income that follows them regardless of their location. But a lot of people are, they're just having to, come to terms with the fact that it's tricky doing, I don't know, music, doing all sorts of stuff to be creative in the world, but then also, varying influences of the world. So it's hard to observe the world where you're trying to draw inspiration, and there's so much mixed in with like, I like that. That's cool. What happened? This is an injustice. This is horrible. I can't believe this is going on in this country. What happened to these people? What are these refugees having to go through? What are, like, you're taking in the totality of the world. And that's why so many albums in the next couple years and recently, they're a reflection of the time. We wrote these songs during quarantine. We wrote these songs when all of our shows got shut down and we were questioning our career. We wrote this as a last hurrah because we had to break up the band. We wrote this as a hope for a better day, and we're not performing currently, but we're trying to navigate these waters. And it's there's some level of comfort in the work because it shows some sort of progress. It shows some sort of understanding that you're doing the thing you want to do, and in spite of what's going on. I can say that about me. I'm still doing music because I wasn't doing music full-time only last year. I've been doing it full-time since spring of 2013, because that was when I quit trying to do a factory job on top of a bunch of stuff. There's other podcast episodes where I explain that story. Basically, I just overworked myself, and then I realized, why am I working in a factory where my hands, hearing, and like other aspects of what I need to be a musician are gonna be ruined if I'm here for more than a year. So, um, but I feel like Haruki nails it with just like we're expected to just like carry on as normal, but we're so beat down that it's like when we see these things happening, we're like, can't anything just change for the better? can't we just have can't we just explore art and do music and like see a society transformed? Because it's nice to clip out like this lady wrote a song and it's about how she just wants a better world. She just wants to feel like her life is better. And she just wrote about her son, her little baby boy, Skylar, just wrote about it. And then meanwhile, like in the same town they're performing is like 800 people died today in a chemical fire because this company neglected safety measures for 25 years and it caused a giant fire, and now the company is facing a lawsuit for $50 million, even though their net worth is 80 times that now. you know, it's like it's like, oh, you did a bad thing. Pay us a lot of money. Okay, cool. We have plenty of money now because we operated a risky business with dirt wages to our employees for 20 years, and we pocketed all the profits after paying out execs, and now we have the money to like face any criticism, and we'll make those changes now because we have the money stockpiled, and then it looks like good PR because we have that redemption story. Like they had a chemical fire, and that was under old leadership. The old leadership steps down, still profits from the business, and that they just don't make any decisions. There's a public statement of we're appointing this person who's a little bit younger, who has basically the same vision, but he looks younger and he looks like he's more progressive. And then, they pay off some employees for their loyalty. Some people leave. They hire other people at dirt cheap, and then they update they put a new coat of paint. They update some of the wiring. They maybe get some new trucks or something, and then there's another press thing where they take a tour. It's like, that was the old leadership. Here at this chemical plant, we're now one of the highest rated safety people in the state of Iowa, and that comes from months of dedication from all of our employees to turn around this chemical company to a great American innovator like it once was. This company's been around since 1895, and we take our legacy very seriously. And then 15 years, they have another fire. And it's like, what happened? Well, this one was employee neglect. They were not properly trained, so we fired the management, and we're firing that employee. And meanwhile, oh, yeah, Piano Man. Oh, you wanted to hear Piano Man. Cool. There's a problem. No, you don't want to... Okay, you don't want to hear about a problem? All right. Okay, yep. Here you go. Here's your Piano Man. Here you go. You like it? You having a good time? You like playing it? You don't play it? Oh, so that's why you want me to play it. Just because it's calming the demons. It's just great. We live in a society that's totally great. I love it. I love it. We live in a society. So I think it's a combination of trying to take in the totality of the world, learning and gleaning more information that is like, why do we have certain things the way they are? And then constantly being beaten down with the cost of living rising so that all of our focus and time has to go into work. And the work that we do is to survive and not really thrive. All the while, the people who genuinely want to support us also are beaten down. And the people who have the means to transform people's lives, whether it's income or resources, whatever, they're not out and about because they're chasing the dollar. They're chasing they want to buy the bigger house. They want the boat. They want to upgrade the car. They want to get the latest model iPhone. They want to get the latest, whatever. Like, I have a PS5, but that took me saving after I put in a pre-order, which I had to do a pre-order. I had to do Sony's dumb like, oh, put in your email and we'll let you know when the first wave of pre-orders go up. And then as soon as they went up, I pre-ordered because I knew it was going to be, it's a next gen console. It's going to be gangbusters. And from the pre-order time until launch, it was about 4 months. So I had 4 months to save $500 and set it aside because they weren't gonna the charging wasn't gonna happen until it shipped. So that's what I have to do with luxury. I have to plan for 4 months to get a thing that I'll enjoy. Or this vacation I took is like I had to plan for half a year and I still got sick. And it was like 2 nights in an Airbnb, and I just spent most of it just like in blankets, just like, oh, I'm cold. But hey, that's life, right? So, Haruki, you were very astute with your comment, if you're watching this. But, thanks for listening. And I appreciate all of you who have checked out this podcast throughout the year. Maybe you got a laugh. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you learned something about me, learned something about yourself, learned something about the world. But, we're going into 2022. Hopefully things improve. Hopefully calling attention to them does something, but I appreciate you checking this out. Patreon.com/Snedeker for supporting. DutchSnedeker.com for everything else. And we'll see you in the next of, 2 remaining weeks? 2 or 3? I think 2. But we'll see you next time.